Greetings friends, welcome back to the channel if you have been here before, or welcome if it is your first time visiting. I am out on the patio this morning on a gorgeous pre-summer day that feels a lot like summer, but it's so lovely. We don't have any humidity at all in the air this morning. We have bright blue skies. There's a nice breeze blowing. It's probably going to reach maybe 80 degrees today. And I wanted to come outdoors with one of the babies. And I was missing this one in particular. This is one of my two Lauras that I have in my collection. I have Laura twins. And this one is just stunning. They both are. I love my Laura twins, you guys. This baby is Alina Faith. And her artist is Alina Antonova, whose work is just spectacular on every level. And I just changed Alina into this very simple, I feel like simple and elegant, yellow summer romper. And like a soft brushed cotton with the little, like, what would you call that? Ribbed knit, I guess, cotton, with a big broad collar that goes all the way down to the chest, and it's sleeveless, but the ruffled collar goes around the shoulders and it just snaps at the bottom. It's a short romper, and I left her feet bare because, like I said, it is feeling really summer-like today. And yeah, I'm assuming we probably will have the AC on in the house at some point. Right now I've got all the windows and doors open, which I love. And this romper is by Modern Moments. And then she has a beautiful little headband in her hair that is like, I guess it looks like a flower. It has 3 pearls at the center. And it's got that same light butterscotch yellow color with white lace in it. Yeah, I would say the romper is more of like a light butterscotch yellow. I just love it. It's so sunny, it's so cheerful, and I thought it would suit Alina's beautiful dark skin tone perfectly. Alina is currently napping in this little bouncer chair that I'm still completely obsessed with. My fabulous Amazon find that I love, and I featured it. I told you guys all about it in a recent video. If you happened to have missed that, I will link it in the description box down below. Not that I'm getting any commission for this chair, but it is so awesome. It's so lightweight. I can carry it everywhere, even with the baby inside of it. Move it from room to room, upstairs to downstairs. It's wonderful. And I just have a lightweight muslin blanket beneath her to keep her cool. And yeah, so there she is with her little curled up foot. And she's cuddling with her little white bunny lovey. I do have her off in the shade a bit, so hopefully you are getting a good view of her. Just a little bit of sun there is on her gorgeous scalp and her hand. I love this baby's rooting. Love it. It's probably one of my favorites of all the rooted babies in my collection currently. I love the way Alina Antonova roots her babies. So yeah, guys, here's Alina, and here I am back with another video. I know it's been a hot second since I popped on, but you know, hashtag life, work, and all of the other details that fit in between. But anyhow, I wanted to come on because I received a question within a comment on one of my most recent videos. The one where I was talking about different ways to help bond or increase your bond or re-engage your bond with your babies. So I thought I would make a video to talk about this because I'm aware that people who aren't involved in this hobby may find it strange that we talk about bonding with our dolls, because the question was, in effect, how does someone bond with an inanimate object? I said that right, didn't I? Inanimate object. For some reason it's being a tongue twister this morning for me. But how does one bond with something that isn't real? Let's put it that way, okay? How does one form an emotional bond with something that isn't living and breathing? And I think that's a fair question. And it wasn't posed to me in such a way that I took it offensively. And I appreciate that. I do appreciate that when someone comes across my videos that isn't a Reborn doll collector or a doll collector of any sort, and they are genuinely curious as to what goes on behind the scenes for us when it comes to getting as attached as we do to these dolls. Because yes, as realistic as they appear to be, we know that they are not real. We know it. There isn't a collector among us worldwide that believes their babies to be real. So let's just get that right out there. We all know, each one of us, every single one of us knows that our babies, our dolls, are not real babies. We call them babies because they are like babies in the way they appear. They're very much more alike to a baby than to a manufactured doll. But if we were to be technical about it, they are reborn dolls. They are baby dolls. So that is the deal with that. We know they aren't real. But how do we bond with something that isn't real? How do we accomplish that? Before I get into it, guys, I do want to remind you that I am outside. You'll hear lots of birds chattering. You'll hear airplanes every now and again. Some odd beeping noise, I think coming from the golf course, probably someone operating a lawnmower or some type of vehicle out on the golf course. I'll pan and show you guys out there. I don't see it, but it's close enough that I can hear the beeps. I hope they're not going to be too annoying. But yeah, got some plants, some flowers starting to emerge from the garden. So yeah, please excuse all of that hustle and bustle, but I am outside and it goes with the territory. So it sounds like we have a seaplane in the distance. I am no psychology major. I'll begin by stating that fact. I am not a psychology major, and I don't pretend to understand all of the workings of the human mind. But what I can tell you, what I've learned over the course of all these years that I've been collecting lifelike baby dolls, is that when it comes to developing a bond, so to speak, with an inanimate object, it is sometimes something that we don't even control. And maybe I shouldn't say we. Perhaps I shouldn't say we, because sometimes when I do that, people want to jump on and say, well, I don't feel that way. And they seem to get insulted when I speak for everyone. So I'll just speak for myself. I'll answer this from my own perspective, and you can tell me if you can relate. For me, from a very young age, my heart was able to embrace inanimate objects, such as stuffed animals, toys, again, dolls of some sort. But I was very big into stuffed animals when I was young, dolls as well, but I'm going to talk about my stuffed animals in this instance because I was definitely able to love my stuffed animals very deeply, very much. I was so attached to them. And you might say, well, that is something that is inherent to most children, right? That ability. But why is it something that we would outgrow? Because you see, my heart hasn't changed a whole heck of a lot since I have been a child. My heart is exactly the same. And when I say that I loved my stuffed animals and my dolls and certain toys, that feeling came from an emotional place. I think that it is part of human nature for our emotions not to discern when it comes to whether something is living and breathing and we love it as we would a pet or a human being, or a stuffed toy. So to me, when I was a child, there really wasn't much of a difference. Now, obviously, I can recognize now as I'm older that there are distinctions between the level of affection. There definitely are distinctions. So, for example, with my dolls now, when I say that I love them, I think they're amazing, I adore them, I enjoy being with them and looking at them, it is a different degree of love or affection. It's a different type of bond that I feel. For example, the way I feel about my dolls differs from the way I feel about my children and grandchildren. That love is so deep and so profound that it's almost impossible to put it into words. It's like trying to describe the taste of water. That is how I would classify my love for my children and grandchildren, and my husband as well, of course, but you know, the kids and the grandkids, they just like lock, stock, and barrel own it. They own it. And my parents, who are no longer with me, who are in heaven, my love for my parents, my family, it's different. But on that note, don't we have different variations of love for people in our lives? Like, I love my friends, but in a different way than I love my family. So the capacity of the human heart, at least in my case, is almost mysterious. It works in a mysterious way that I can't quite put into words. But the ability to love a doll, such as how we bond or connect with our babies, isn't that unique or special. It isn't exclusive to our hobby. I've heard people talk about how much they love their cars. We have a friend who is very, very into motorcycles, and he has a Harley that, if you didn't know any better, you would think was his actual living baby. He's constantly like looking after this bike, this motorcycle, and cleaning it and doting on it and buying accessories for it. And he will fully admit that he is obsessed and he loves his bike. He loves his Harley. And I would have to assume that those emotions are coming from a place within his heart somewhere. So I think that, again, for me, my emotions just don't care enough to distinguish whether or not I'm assigning affection to something that isn't living and breathing. And it has been that way for me my entire life. Even when it comes to the houses we live in, some people form intense attachments to their homes. I know that my daughter, she absolutely loves the home that she is in, so much so that she would never consider moving out of her house. She says it's her dream home and she loves it. And that's the word she uses to describe how she feels about her house. Some years ago, I had to move out of the house that I raised my children in. Before I moved into this house, my husband and I moved into this house, I had to sell the home that I raised my children in. And I felt this as such a loss. I was brokenhearted over having to sell that house. It had to do with a divorce agreement and so on and so forth. But I had formed, probably unbeknownst to myself, I had formed an emotional bond with that house due to the memories, due to all of the things that had happened in that home with my children when they were little. I'd formed an emotional bond with that house. And I'll never forget the day that I had to prepare for the walkthrough for the new owners. And I'd gone to the house earlier in the day ahead of their arrival. And I was alone in the house. And I sat down in the middle of the now empty living room floor, and I just sobbed. I sobbed because I felt as though I was already grieving the fact that I would no longer be in this house. So clearly, my heart, my emotions had become entangled, had become engaged with that property, which isn't living and breathing. It's inanimate. But I was gut-wrenched over it. Now, eventually, I did manage to move beyond that and form an attachment with the house that we are in now, but I don't know that I am as deeply bonded to this house. I don't know that I feel that same level of attachment. So things just happen, I think, to us. And sometimes, or to me, again, to me, but you guys let me know if you can relate. And it sometimes just escapes logic. It escapes or defies logic when it comes to dealing with emotions. Now, when it comes down to these dolls, I've heard it said or explained away that the reason some of us, not all of us perhaps, but the reason some of us get so deeply connected to these dolls, these babies of ours, is because they do look so lifelike, and or they fit a need. They fit into a place in our hearts that is needing something. Perhaps for some people, they were not able to have real babies for whatever reason, and that maternal instinct just needed to be fed. And along comes these beautiful, very, very realistic, very lifelike looking dolls. And it suits that need. It addresses that need and that desire to mother, to nurture. And I've heard it said that because of the realism of these dolls, it almost tricks our minds into thinking and responding to them as though they were real babies. I'm not sure that I necessarily agree with the fact that it is a trick of the mind. I think it's really just as simple as the fact, at least for me, that I've always loved dolls. I've always loved babies. And the fact that this doll feels so much like a baby, looks so much like a baby, but yet she's not, makes me appreciate her all the more. I appreciate that I don't have to feed her, that she won't grow up. I can always have this beautiful baby doll to look at as produced in this particular stage of life. Our real babies grow up so fast, guys. They grow up so fast. It's like insane. And babies are just babies for what, less than a year? And then they're toddlers. Yes, less than a year. That's it. That's all we get. And then we get memories. And then we get memories of their babyhood. And it goes by in the blink of an eye. So we get to freeze time, in a sense, with these dolls. And there's some magic in that, for sure. So I don't know whether all of my explanations here or the thoughts that I've shared have adequately answered that question for the viewer. But all I can say is perhaps harken back to a time in your life when you may have formed a bond with something that wasn't real. Maybe it was a doll, a toy, a stuffed animal, anything. A home, a car, a place. A place. There's another place in my life that I formed a bond to when I was a child. It was my grandmother's bungalow house in Center Moriches, Long Island. I loved that place so much. The memories, the times we had there at that home, just were second to none. And I often think that if heaven could look like any place in the world for me, it would be the country with that bungalow right there with all of my family members in it, as it once had been years ago. But I loved that bungalow house. I loved everything about it. So just think back and think, was there a time? Or is there a time now? Is there something now that I've said I love that isn't real? I bet you, if you think hard enough, you'll come up with something. All right, my friends, so that is going to do it from Alina and me for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I did want to mention that I have 2 more babies available for adoption If you haven't checked out my community wall, they are listed there. And one of them is the Mick with Love sculpt, my Bodhi by Adri Stoetti. And the other is my Eloise, which is the Eloise sculpt by Maisa Said. If you are interested at all, check them out. Go onto my community wall page and email me or drop a comment on the post. All right, guys, so hopefully I'll be back very soon with Alina's twin. It has been a while since Ashton has appeared in a video, and I plan to bring her on next. And I hope to find you guys here when I return. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all. As always, stay close, stay safe, and stay healthy. Take care.